Yeah, okay, perfect. Perfect. So thank you very much again. So I would like to talk today about obviously what we're doing, it's Filigran, but more like at a high level, not really as the solutions, etc., but really our conviction and what we're also like seeing within our customers base or within our community on how like actually we can build you can build a threat-driven security posture validation program. And it's really, really important to understand what is, okay, security posture validation is something that, a lot of companies are doing since a long time. We're talking obviously about traditional pen testing, attack surface management, red team, purple team, etc. And how you can, build like a more industrialized process on those program, and how you can incorporate threat intelligence into those kind of program. So what we'll, see today, obviously we'll have, quick introduction about what is, SPV, security posture validation, what are the different components and the purposes of those program, and how like, threat intel can benefit in this. Also like seeing what is, threat management and how like, all these cycle can work together to, having like better result, having automation and be really, really driven by the operationalization of all those results, and then like all the KPIs that you can measure for the success of such program. So my name is Samuel. Once again, I'm very glad to be here. I'm the CEO and the co-founder at Filigran. So Filigran is a quite like young company. I don't have any slides actually introducing Filigran, but we're the vendor behind OpenCTI, the threat intelligence platform, and OpenBAS for breach and attack simulation and security validation. Used to work for 15, 20 years in cybersecurity, previously at Tanium, and I was like also leading the threat intelligence team at the National Cybersecurity Agency in France, the ANSI. Yeah, so let's jump right away into our subject, and saying, okay, what are the different pains and the challenges that you can have, and where a program can actually answer to. So what we are observing is basically those three pillars about the fact that actually having the knowledge about what's going on in terms of threat landscape, whether externally or internally within an organization, is becoming harder and harder, to be honest. Like, and you have great tools. And sorry for the notifications, I will have like to just share like the presentation itself, but you have like a growing number of of a lot of different tools. Actually, you have your Alex surface management, your dark web monitoring, your threat intelligence sources. You have like all purple team penetration testing, red teaming, etc. So you have like a lot of different sources and tools that can help you to get that knowledge. The main problem here is obviously generating a lot of data, but also like in terms of quality and modelizations, it's really, really difficult to have all of this within a single pane of glass. And building a kind of cockpit about, okay, do I know actually what's going on, whether internally or externally? Well, just 1 second. I will just remove notifications. Okay, that's okay. And so you have like this knowledge, and that's one of the challenge. The second one is really, are you really ready for having, and okay, you have the knowledge. Let's say you managed to do all of this. You managed to have your picture about your external threat landscape. You managed to have your a proper attack surface management, and you know what's going on internally and externally. And then like the fact about like just the questions about, but are you ready really like for the next attack? Are you ready to face the attack that actually occurred last year and you had like this incident? And how do you know that you are really ready to face the same incident? And so monitor that over time. Obviously, technically, you can test a lot of things. You can have, all the DR stuff like EDR, XDR, MDR, etc. You can have detections. You can have, more like, perimeter security, and you have like the human factor inside of all of this. And so, answering the questions based on that knowledge, am I ready to face, any new internal threats or external threats? That's also a questions that our customers are really struggling with. And then like once you have like those two pillars, you have obviously the third one, which is, Okay, but if you know that you're not fully ready, if you know that given this threat, driven landscape, and you know that you're not like fully ready, are you acting on this? And we're always, coming about, the same questions and challenges within our industry, the CTI one, which is operationalization. And I'm not talking about just, operationalize IOCs, etc. How you get like 100% of the value of your threat intel operationalized for a lot of different things. And and for this, answering that questions about how you operationalize like all the levels, not only just IOCs, how you remediate your gaps and how like you um, orient your strategic and operational roadmap. That's exactly the thing that you have like to think about. And here is, the answer to all those questions is within a proper threat-driven security validation program. So a few concepts here. Sorry for the text. I have like more visual slides after, but the different concept that we will have like during that presentations is obviously what I just told about, like understanding like the threat landscape, and we're talking here about a holistic view on the threat landscape, not only the IOCs, the technical size, not only the operations with the TTPs, but also knowing like victims, knowing like trends about okay the latest campaigns that targeted this industry and what was the levers and the motivations behind those campaigns, which kind of like tools has been used, etc. But if you would like to build those kind of program and having like tools to automate this, you have like to go very, very deep into the technical sections, which means that there is no magic trick here, leveraging whatever AI you can have. Like if you would like to simulate or to replicate a payloads that happened in a previous incident, you have to have this payload somewhere in a database. So you have like to be like having a very deep understanding of what's going on, whether like technically or more like very strategically. Okay, so the other thing is, continuous assessment, and the fact is, what we are trying like to put in place is really about, okay, you have an evolving threat landscape. Everyone's saying that like threat landscape is evolving, etc. But how like actually you adapt your assessment to that threat landscape? This is all the purpose about purple teaming. And purple teaming is great, and it's taking like it's all about like purple teaming and also like very complex red team about like can you replicate like this previous incident, can you replicate the behavior of this attacker because it's one of the top threats that is actually targeting us. But having this continuous assessment that is evolving automatically given like your threat intel, that's something that is quite challenging. And then adapt like your defense plan. So just key steps that we were also helping. So as I told, like Filigran, we're a software vendor, so we're not obviously our tools can help building those kind of program, but and we can help also within our teams to build those kind of program, but that's not something we're actually like doing ourselves. So the first here you have basically 6 steps. The first step is really about building this knowledge base, where basically you have like a better understanding of your threat landscape. And as I told you, like one of the major components here is really just not to map like the TTPs, but really having a better understanding, even like very, very technical, because we will need those data to actually automate that just later. Then obviously like define some objectives. We'll see a lot of like KPIs and OKRs that you can put like within that program to assess if this program is successful or not. But it's really about like okay, defining obviously some objectives and enhancing like detection rates, etc. But having really like those goals very defined at the beginning. It's like the PIRs, like when you have like priority intelligence requirements, when you have those kind of programs, you have to have requirements about okay, if I would like to have continuous and autonomous validation of my security posture driven by threat intelligence, here is like the different objective. Then benchmarking and baselining is quite important. We're trying like to do that more on the threat basis, but then like baselining like your environment, it's also a very, very important step to be sure that you will have like the proper threat scenarios. Then it's more like the run in terms of like simulations. implementing and automating like processes, and that's also like where basically Filigran can definitely help with some tooling that integrate together and that generate like automatically an assessment based on the different threats. Then like you all know about the threat intelligence lifecycle, or in the CTI summit, and actually I have like one diagram where basically we're mixing um, what we call like a threat intelligence lifecycle with the security validation lifecycle within a program. So here it's more about like how you operationalize all of that in a more like cycle way, where basically you plan, you collect like the data you need, the assets and the criticality of those assets, then like you implement on this. And here in the blue, like the most important thing is what is the key drivers and the key success factors within like those different steps. And collaborating obviously between IT and security at the beginning of those kind of assessment is one of the success factor you have like to lever. Then like integrating threat intelligence, and that's really important during the implementation phase, that you can leverage and use the actionable threat intelligence that will be collected by your threat intelligence team during the implementations. And then like it's more about like scaling automations and implementing like what we call like more like continuous validation. And continuous validation is also, it can be, let's say, at a very high level, at a very complex level, about I would like to really like have complex simulation program based on very sophisticated TTPs or very ad hoc payloads that we were already targeted with, etc. Or that can be very, very simple, about like just atomic testing, repetitive testing, just to say like CI/CD processes. Like I would like to have a continuous testing of my detection mechanisms. Then about like integrating CTI within security validation. Everything here is about proactivity, and we're one of the challenge of our industry, if it's not like just about operationalization, is operationalization is in a way that it's actually more proactive. Obviously, when you're putting IOCs in detection or even like in blocking mode, you are, let's say, more like proactively, but the fact is this IOC is already there. So it's more about how like you can adapt your defense by like more having like the proactive stuff on, okay, I'm actually simulating on a continuous basis what I have in my TTPs, etc. And what we need to and what you need to address, like, and more like the effective response as well is more on the reactive way. And then obviously having like more threat driven, like you can definitely optimize the allocation of your different resources, also based on your top 10 threats, your top 10 like TTPs used by both threat, and all what is related to your PIRs. Another focus I would like to share with you is we saw so many organizations that just take the threat intelligence program, mostly evaluating the external threat landscape, and a lot of them like are a little forgotten about internal ones. And I'm not just talking about internal threats like insiders, etc. I'm also like talking about everything that happened in the past. And so that's also why when I'm talking about this single pane of glass is really about like, okay, I also have within my threat intelligence database or knowledge base, not talking about any platform here, etc. It's really about, okay, do also I have everything that can be leveraged from my previous incident, which is TTPs, observables, payloads, maybe artifacts that can help me in my threat driven security posture program to also base my assessment on what happened in the past. Then like just one word about OpenCTI and OpenBAS, obviously. So maybe some of you already know the platform. So we have OpenCTI on one side, which is more like the knowledge base on everything that can happen in your threat landscape, whether internally or externally. And what is interesting is you can do very high level stuff, but also like very deeply technical. So you can modelize like payloads, etc. That help. One word, obviously, about the threat intelligence lifecycle. I put it here just for you to understand like the logics about like mixing the two life cycle together and where you have points that can go together. So here you have a few capabilities of the OpenCTI platform mapped to the intelligence lifecycle, whether it likes, from planning and your PIRs and the directions, whether like, collections, processing, analysis, and then like, sharing the data. The second platform is OpenBAS, which is more like breach and attack simulation, security posture validation program that can leverage the data you have in your OpenCTI platform to actually generate scenarios and also like continuous validation. And here is maybe less known. It's what we call like security validation lifecycle. It's almost like it's not exactly the same thing, because here we are more like doing like the assessment itself, like the obviously we'll also like have the planning on this, but then like you have executions and assessment and the mitigations, and then like reporting that should orient like your directions. And here in this security validation lifecycle, obviously, like the platform can help you in different in various steps. It's more about like scheduling, etc., and everything about like mitigating and remediations. And I think where basically it's starting to be very, very interesting to mix like those two life cycle is where you say that based on the sharing part here on the threat intelligence life cycle, based on your PIRs, you can send threat intelligence informations like from like TTPs, payloads, malwares, indicators to be used basically in your continuous testing of your security posture. And so everything you're actually sharing and sending in a more like automated way, if it's possible, and based on your PIRs, that enter in this cycle into the cycle of like planning the continuous assessment, whether it is ad hoc scenarios or very single okay, I received those for this report, we need like a single action one shot to actually try to understand if we're good or not good regarding like the TTPs that are described in this report or the payloads that are described here. Or it will be more like a long-term adaptation and saying, okay, even like any new payload or actions, or even like not really new, that I have like just fresh data over the last 6 months, I would like to automatically test that in production. And also it can be very opportunistic. If okay, you have an alert with those credentials that are leaked on the dark web, and you would like your security validation platform to actually tell you if those credentials are actually valid or not valid, so you can take actions on this. This also like entering into that life cycle. And obviously, what is good is when you can close the loop and saying that as soon as you have executed that and you're more like in an assessing phase, and you know like what is what your security posture look like, and your security posture look like in different dimensions. Obviously, it can be detection and prevention, it can be the human factor of this security posture, but then like sending that back to your threat intelligence team and your threat intelligence that can also like orient your future PIRs, because okay, your assessment is showing you that you're definitely not good to that. So maybe you have like to collect a little more data on this. So you can adjust your PIRs and trigger like new analysis based on this. And so you get like more and more data to refine, let's say, your to refine your cycle on this. So this is what we're trying like to implement. Obviously, you have like the tools here, but it's really like the concept itself. I know a lot of organizations are trying like also like to do this since a long time, and obviously we've also like some custom custom pieces of software internally, and trying like to leverage like SOAR and orchestration systems to establish this. But this is it's all about finally, it's all about what you have here. And I would say like, a last thing on this cycle before we get like more like to the KPI size and how you assess like the efficiency of such program. But here it's really also about the quality of the data you have on the left. That cannot work if you don't have like a proper data modelizations on your threat intelligence side. That's definitely not working because as I just said, like there is no magic there. Um, um, we have like to have like a proper data to be able like to do it. So it's all about like the modeling of the threat intelligence and obviously like the quality of the data itself. And so when you have like a process to assess also like the quality and use only quality data to do it, that's definitely more and more effective. Then we have like a part more on how like you measures and which kind of KPIs you can put in place to be able like to assess the efficiency of such program. The first thing is the different outcomes that you can have given like those kind of programs and the outcome you have like to seek for. The first thing is about everything about proactivity. So when you have like your threat intelligence that can definitely help you, and you have like great quality of threat intelligence, obviously having like the TTPs, it's enabling you, and having this kind of program, it will enable you definitely having like taking like more proactive measures and being able like to be a lot more reactive in terms of like taking remediations measures and mitigations capabilities. Then it's more about like continuous enhancements of the posture. Um, if based on your threat intelligence, like did those kinds of mechanisms, I don't say OpenCTI and OpenBAS, but those kind of like system can definitely help you. Sorry for this. Can definitely help you to giving you continuous improvement and continuous recommendation of improvement, not maybe not like automation in terms of adjusting your configurations, etc., but just like giving you a lot of like improvement roadmap is really like it will definitely boost a lot your team's ability also like to execute on the roadmap. And that's very very important because when you have like when it's driven by threat intelligence, it's not coming from nowhere. So it's not only just giving you like the proper recommendations and the ability to prioritize, it will also be um, a lever, an additional lever that justify like the choices on the roadmap. And that's also important to have a kind of external validation of what you're doing in terms of like defense roadmap and security roadmap. Then like for more like optimized resources, it's really about tailor the effort on critical vulnerabilities, on things that are actually exploited in the wild. You have like these exploits used by this threat actor group, and you can leverage that, and so you can optimize the allocations of your resources. That we all know that those resources are quite like limited within our industry. And then it's more about like all the downtime that you can anticipate a lot on reducing like the different disruption that you can have by just having that implemented. Okay, here is the key performance indicator, whether like more on the metric side and more on the effectiveness side. So I divided that into more like three pillars because, as I told you, this program is not just only technical. We're not seeking just about industrializing, sorry, purple teaming. We're looking at like basically this program should cover all all the levels within the cybersecurity organizations or security organizations within a company or public administration. It should cover SecOps. It should cover risk management and governance. And so you have a like more traditional outcome and traditional KPIs like MTTD and MTTR. I was like leveraging MITRE ATT&CK framework coverage, but also everything about like your detection rate, false positive rate, like incident response efficiency, and we're also like saying that we're trying like to work really like in collaborations with the teams, not only to say, okay, based on what we have simulated here, you have, I don't know, a 90% detection rate within your, EDR and antivirus and XDR platform or next gen SIEM. Trying like, to take this information and having like more like very accurate data on in which time like an alert has been taken into account. Do we have like respect like the procedures on this? Like we have a specific reports that we have like to write about. Is this report is containing the accurate data? And AI, to be honest, can help a lot on this one. I didn't talk a lot about AI during that presentations, but whenever it comes to having more like very accurate metrics and numbers, that's something we can do by directly interacting with defenses systems. But then like when it comes to, okay, we have this chain of emails based on this alerts and based on these procedures, are we good, are we not good? Do we have like some road for improvement actually that we can put in place? AI can definitely help. Then in the risk management side is more on how many like remediations that you have taken after a kind of automated simulation. That's quite like an important one. Then it's more about the times you actually, I mean, the times you actually remediated some gaps that has been discovered during these different simulations, but also like during continuous testing and the exposure you have. Then it's more like the reduction over time of your risk posture, the remediation rate, and the vulnerability age itself. So when you have like a new findings, and those finding age are reducing over time. But in terms of governance, I also love those kind of like metrics actually. And I know like a few companies are actually tracking that. But if you would like to, and I think it's the same for a threat intelligence program, if you would like to assess like the efficiency of this one is, okay, how many times you have changed a policy based on actually threat intelligence inputs. Maybe it can be not only due to threat intelligence, but it can be interesting to know. Or the evolution of the different skills and capabilities of the assets. And when I'm talking about assets and I'm putting that in governance here, I'm talking about both technical and human assets, which means your XDR has some skills, whether like detection rules, coverage, capabilities, collection points, etc., that are evolving over time. Whether it's because your vendor have a roadmap and is adding like new detection capabilities, covering like more TTPs, etc., or whether it is because you're developing your own detection rules, etc., or whether it is just because you're adding like new data points that can just enable and unlock new detection or new preventions mechanisms. But it's also the human aspect of all of this, about like how like you react to all of this, how you are actually assessing, and what is your different plans when it comes to a cyber crisis. And we can having all of this. And so whether your technical systems or your let's say the human behind those systems are have actually skills and capabilities, and how you evolve, it's how you assess like the evolutions of those skills and assets over time. And then like obviously like more like very traditional KPIs about audit findings, etc. Okay, so I think it's almost the end of this presentation. So I just would like to give like some takeaways here. So first of all, like integrating threat intelligence to have like more proactive things. It's really one of the the main, let's say, one of the main tool threat intelligence team can use actually to break different silos between teams and to greatly enhance like the resilience over time, because you're adapting like very and in more like automated way. Then like the fact that you have like to be able like to continuously test that. And I would take another example, but I have a lot of MSSPs telling me that basically their main pain point right now is when they have like thousands of customers. It's really like just to ensure that nothing is broken within the chain of detection and the chain of prevention. And at some points, on having this continuous testing, it's becoming really key. But if you would like to be, because you cannot like test everything, that's also like very good that you can prioritize the kind of like continuous testing and monitoring that you have to put in place just based on threat intelligence insights. And collaboration across departments and automation. Obviously, it's very critical. And as I told you, I think like those kind of programs can bring a lot to a lot of different teams and not just only threat intelligence or purple teams. And then like for the next step is more like, okay, if you have like to implement that right now, okay, so just establish your assessment, having like, a proper understanding of the threat landscape and the security controls you have in place, and then like starting to establish more KPIs, implementing, targeted attack simulations, and then expand this program iteratively. And I think that's all. So thank you very much for your intention, and I think I can give you Doug like a few minutes back. Thank you very much.